Okay, so we have directly answered this question already. What will happen to it, right? But that's not all. They also want us to explain. Okay, so this is where we go into the explanation part. So 2, explain answer using a scientific concept that we have learned. So in this case, a scientific concept is that the leaves make food, right? So let's add this in. Okay, this is because the leaves make food for the seedling. Okay, but is that all? No, right? Because we still don't know why the plant will die. Okay, we only know, oh, because the leaf makes food for the plant, but then why will it die if it has no leaf? Right? So remember to always ask yourself this question when you are explaining a science question. So what? Okay, so the leaf makes food for the plant. Okay, so what? Right, what comes after that? So why will it die? Right, we still have not fully answered the question yet. So we got to add on the next part about the fact that the seedling needs this food to survive. Right, so this is because the leaves make food for the seedling, which the seedling needs to survive. Okay, and then after this, you want to link back. Okay, how do you link back to the question? Simple, right? You just go therefore, after the plant will die after a few days. Therefore, the plant will die. Okay, so all you got to do is just link back to whatever your answer in front is. Okay, so these are the 3 steps to answering an explain question, and this is usually how it works when the question is worth more than 1 mark. Okay, so we are done with question 7. Okay, let's proceed to question 8. Okay, so underline the keywords, right? Ram set up an experiment as shown below. Okay, so you have setup A that has the seeds in some wet cotton wool, and it is placed in the garden. Okay, then in setup B, you have the seeds also in some wet cotton wool, but the only difference is that it is placed in a cupboard with no light. Okay, so we understand what the experiment looks like. So part A, state the 3 conditions needed for a seed to become a young plant. Okay, conditions mean the environment. Okay, what is needed in the seed's environment for it to become a young plant? Okay, and when we talk about seeds, right, we are only talking about these things. These little round seeds. Okay, so it has not become a plant yet. So it has not grown into a seedling like in question 7. It is just the round little seed. Okay, so what does a seed need to grow into a young plant? Okay, it needs air, right? All organisms need to breathe, right? It needs water. All organisms need water, and okay, most of us might think that the natural next word is food, right? Because all organisms need air, water, and food. Okay, but in the environment for a seed, food is not necessary. Okay, let me explain to you why. Okay, because this is a seed, right? On the outer layer of the seed, there is a sort of like layer on the outside. Okay, what this layer is called is the seed leaf. Okay, this outer layer provides food for the seed, before the leaves grow. Okay, because before the leaves grow, the seed is not able to make its own food. So what does it use? It uses the outer layer called the seed leaf to provide food for itself. So in the environment that the seed grows up in, it doesn't need food because it can provide food for itself. So instead, what does a seed need to grow? It needs air, water, and warmth. Okay, these are the three things. Okay, and these are the three conditions. Okay, air, water, and warmth. Okay, part B. Ram saw that the roots appeared first as the seeds in setup A grew. Explain why the roots appeared first. Okay, since it is only 1 mark, you just have to state why. Okay, there's no need for you to answer the question and then explain and bring up the scientific concept and all that like we did previously. Okay, so just 1 mark, just explain why. What does the roots do? What do the roots do? The roots absorb water for the seeds. Okay, but then we still have to ask ourselves the question, so what? Okay, so what if the roots absorb water? Why does it need to grow then? Is water something that the plant needs? Yes, right? So we have to add that in. So the roots absorb water for the seeds, which the seeds need to survive. Okay, moving on. Ram suggested that the seeds in setup B would still grow to become a young plant. Explain his suggestion. Okay, I've already told you, right, that the seed gets its food from the seed leaf. It doesn't have leaves to make food for itself yet. Okay, so does it need light? The reason why a plant needs light is because the leaves need the sunlight to make food, right? And Ram, here what he's saying that in setup B, and it is where it is put in a place with no light, it can still grow. Okay, why is that? Is because it doesn't need sunlight, right? There are no leaves for it to make food with the sunlight. It gets food on its own. Okay, so let's explain his suggestion. So seeds do not need sunlight to grow. Okay, why? Right, because it has no leaves, right? Okay, so what? This still doesn't explain how they get their food, right? So where do they get their food from? They get it from the seed leaves, right? So seeds do not need sunlight to grow because it has no leaves, and instead gets food from its seed leaves. Okay, so it will still grow, and Ram's suggestion is correct. Okay, we're done with question 8. Okay, let's press on to the next question, question 9, which we can see, from the diagram that they have given, is a question on the digestive system. Okay, so Andrew used some objects to make a model to represent the human digestive system, as shown below. Okay, so what Andrew did was he used some commonly found items like a rubber hose, a plastic bag, some rope, and a paper roll to make a model, right, of the human digestive system. And if we look at the actual system here, compared to Andrew's model, yeah, I would say that they are quite similar, right? Okay, so part A, name the parts of the system represented by these objects. So the rope and the rubber hose. The rope and the rubber hose. Okay, so let's compare his model with the actual system on the left. That should make things a little bit easier. Starting with the top part. His head. Okay, so the start of Andrew's model is over here, right? And this is the same as the mouth on the digestive system. Okay, so from the start of Andrew's model, it travels down this way. Okay, through the rubber hose. Okay, so after food enters the mouth, where does it go? Okay, does it go straight into the stomach? It doesn't, right? It travels down this tube here before it reaches the stomach. So this tube is represented by the rubber hose in his model. Okay, so can you remember what is the name of this tube? Right, it's called the gullet. Okay, which is just a tube which the food uses to travel from the mouth to the stomach. Okay, so now the stomach, right, is this big bag, like it looks like a sack, right? That is represented by a plastic bag, okay, in Andrew's model. Okay, but that's not what we are looking at. What we are looking at is we want to see what the rope is. Okay, so immediately from the plastic bag in Andrew's model, it is connected to the hose. Okay, so where does the food go immediately after it's digested in the stomach? Goes into the smaller intestine, right? So this would mean that the rope is representing the small intestine. Okay, how do we know that it's a small intestine and not the big intestine? Because Andrew used a paper roll, right, which is much thicker than the rope. Okay, so that would be the big intestine, not the rope. Okay, so now moving on to part B. What happens to the digested food after digestion is completed in the small intestine? Okay, so where does the food go after it finishes, being digested in here? Okay, where it goes, right, is it actually enters the bloodstream. Okay, some of you may be a little bit confused because you may think, but after the small intestine, the food goes into the big intestine. But remember, they're looking for where the digested food goes, okay? What happens to the digested food? What enters the big intestine is the non-digested food. The food that was not able to be digested, then it enters the big intestine, the water is removed, and then it enters the rectum to be removed. Okay, when we go to the toilet. Okay, so the digested food, what happens to it in the small intestine is that it is absorbed into the bloodstream. Okay, so the digested food is absorbed into the bloodstream. Okay, so that is what happens to it after it is digested in the small intestine. Immediately after it is digested, it goes into the bloodstream. Okay, but do any of you know what happens after it enters the bloodstream? Does it just kind of stay in our blood? No, right? It is passed around the body through the blood, giving energy to the rest of our body. Okay, so that is how the digestive system works. With that, we are done with question 9.